Today's executive briefing asks a question that every organization faces and only a few truly answer. How do you stay close to your customers when markets shift faster than the insights you have? So in the next 30 minutes, we'll show how the zero distance probe transformed customer understanding from something you measure into something you experience. We'll explore how leading organizations are using participatory engagement instead of just surveys or dashboards to bring customers directly and their reality directly into the heart of your decision making. And let me tell you a little bit of what we're going to be doing today. I have a little thing. We're going to start with why organizations lose touch and how networks bring them back. What is a zero distance probe anyway? 5 elements of a zero distance probe and ZDP in action. We have a case study of a company and organization which has used it. And then we have time for Q&A. So if you have some questions, think about them, keep them in mind so that we can discuss them before we say goodbye today. But first, I want to introduce you to Jeffrey. He's here. You can see him. He's the Connection Catalyst and founder of Ensemble Enabler. He's also the author of Cambridge Elements' book on network leadership, which came out by Cambridge University Press this year. A German version of that will be published next spring. So Jeff, do you want to tell us about why some organizations lose touch and how networks bring them back by reframing what customer proximity really means in a network world?
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. Yes, I'd be more than happy to do that. I'm going to start with something that I think all of us will recognize, and that is as organizations grow, they often drift away from the customer. And it's not intentional, it's structural. You have layers of hierarchy, you have channels, you have systems that create what network scientists call attenuation. And that is the weakening of a signal as it travels through too many nodes in the network. It's a bit like the party game telephone line, which you may be familiar with. One person whispers a message to the next, and then that person passes it to the next one and on and on. And by the time it reaches the end of the line, the message has changed completely. It's no longer recognizable. Somehow the meaning is lost during the passageway. And the same thing happens in organizations. As customer insights move upward, they are filtered, averaged, delayed. By the time they reach decision makers, emotion and nuance are no longer there. The paradox is that we've never had more data, and yet we often feel less connected. But some organizations are breaking that pattern. They're collapsing the distance between the inside and the outside of the organization. They're engaging customers not as data points, but as participants in discovery. That's what we call zero distance probes, or ZDPs. ZDPs are living participatory sensing systems that bring customer experience directly into the organization. They don't replace analytics or surveys, they complement them by reintroducing human proximity into the strategic intelligence that you gather about the marketplace. Patricia, can you tell us what that really looks like in practice?
Okay, a zero distance probe is a structured but flexible engagement designed to sense, learn, and co-create with the people your organization serves. It's not a research project. It's a living conversation that connects diverse perspectives across your business ecosystems, customers, employees, communities, and partners in your ecosystem. Each probe starts with a clear purpose. So you need, when you do a zero distance probe, you need to understand what do you want to have happen? Why does it matter right now? And when we have alignment among the decision makers of where the distance, where this should be going, then we have a really good foundation for designing a zero distance probe. And then we use network engagement, whether it's online, in person, hybrid. We use it to build an intelligent feedback system that reveals what traditional methods miss. And as someone who is a social scientist, I know how hard it is to capture emotion, motivation, and those subtle signals of change, which you see by looking at the space between the data. In other words, a zero distance probe turns your organization into a learning network. And that learning network is continuously sensing, interpreting, and adapting alongside and with your customers. So Jeffrey's going to talk about the 5 elements of a zero distance probe, one after another. Jeff?
Yes, let me talk about the 5 elements of a zero distance probe. And basically, these are interlocking elements. Each one draws from network principles, and each one helps collapse the gap between your organization and your customers. The first one is what we call purpose alignment. And everything begins with intent. Think of it like an orchestra. Before a concert begins, the first violin, the so-called concert master, plays a single note. One by one, every musician tunes to that sound. Only then can real harmony emerge. In the same way, a zero distance probe begins by tuning the organization. We bring key stakeholders together to define a shared purpose for the probe. In other words, to create a clear tone that connects the objectives of the probe to the organizational goals and customer value. When the why of the probe is clear and resonant, every conversation that follows becomes more focused, more relevant, and more actionable. Purpose alignment ensures that everyone plays in tune with the customer. Then we move on to our second element, which is refining perspective. Those of us who wear glasses know how that feels when you can't really see in the moment that you put on the glasses, everything becomes a lot more in focus. Another way of thinking about it is like a kaleidoscope. You know, each turn of the kaleidoscope shifts and reveals different patterns and colors that were not visible before. And the more angles you consider, the richer, more surprising the picture becomes. In the probe, we create focused dialogue groups, typically small, but diverse and usually cross-functional, to try to uncover some of these hidden patterns. We listen not for a confirmation of our assumptions, but for surprise, for things that we didn't expect. Our goal is to surface what truly matters to customers and to reveal assumptions that may need to be unlearned. By combining multiple perspectives across the network, employees, customers, and sometimes partners, we turn individual insights into a collective understanding. Perspective refinement ensures that the organization sees the full spectrum of signals, not just the familiar patterns. After we've done those 2 things, purpose alignment and perspective refinement, then we're ready to move on to the 3rd step, which is what we call ThinkNet. And this is where we are ready to extend the probe into the larger community. As the saying goes, 2 heads are better than 1. And certainly 1,000 heads are even better. This is where ThinkNet comes in. ThinkNet is our digital platform, an asynchronous dialogue space where participants inside and outside the organization can exchange perspectives, identify emerging themes, and co-create insights. It's where the collective intelligence of the network begins to become visible. Some organizations open ThinkNet to customers alone. Others create hybrid insight communities that blend employees, partners, users, other stakeholders, so that learning and innovation can happen together. By connecting diverse voices at scale, ThinkNet multiplies understanding and uncovers patterns that no single perspective could reveal. At which point we get to our fourth element. And our fourth element is interactive spaces. Interactive spaces are where insights emerge when people come together. And we know that face-to-face is quite different from digital, and that there's a qualitative difference, and that certain things like emotions only occur when people are really, truly physically together. So we create interactive spaces that are immersive, face-to-face experiences that can be either workshops or what we call innovation labs or roundtables. They're all designed to bring ideas and emotions to life. This is where the subtle cues, for instance, laughter or pauses, or the energy of the conversation, reveal what surveys and platforms could not possibly capture. Empathy, understanding, and deep insight flourish in these moments. And participants react, are challenged, and they co-create in real time, giving decision makers a direct line to what truly matters to customers. This environment, both physical and psychological, is critical to get right. So these spaces should invite curiosity, connection, and genuine conversation, which turn interaction into insight. So interactive spaces complete the probe by translating diverse perspectives into shared understanding and actionable ideas. But we're not done yet. We have element number 5, which we call serendipity at scale. And this final element is where structure, I like to say, structure meets surprise. When you bring together people across boundaries, whether that be different generations or different sectors or different functions, something extraordinary happens. Patterns emerge that no algorithm could predict. We call this serendipity at scale. It's the spark that occurs when diverse perspectives collide, when ideas bounce off one another, and when curiosity drives unexpected connections. Breakthrough insights often arrive when you least expect them. A comment in a workshop, a conversation over coffee, or a reflection from participants you hadn't considered before. By intentionally creating networks of interaction, we systemize serendipity. We don't leave it to chance. We design the conditions where discovery can flourish. And that's where the most valuable insights emerge. The insights that transform strategy, spark innovation, and deepen customer understanding. Patricia, let's make this concrete with a recent example.
So what does this look like in practice? Thanks, Jeff. We worked together with Insurance Europe. It is a European federation that represents national insurance associations throughout Europe. And they wanted to explore how Gen Z and Generation Alpha are reshaping their expectations for the insurance agency. Just as a recall, these are people who were born in the mobile phone age. They've never known anything but the internet. So they have very, very different expectations of companies and their products. And a lot of companies, and this a lot of insurance companies even, are baffled at saying, what do we need to do to really engage with these people and develop products that they want to buy? And so what we did is we started with a shared purpose, and that's how a zero probe starts. We believe, as you probably have already heard, that having a shared purpose amongst the decision makers is very important, and that helps to shape the entire experience. You take some time to do that, but then you have a purpose, you have the goals that you want to achieve, and you have your aspired goals, and you say, this is what we want to do. That helps us to design a zero distance probe that will fulfill those wishes. So with Insurance Europe, we started with their leadership, and they had a clear goal. They need to understand how the younger generations, these are people between 17 and 28, this is Gen Z, how they perceive the relevance of insurance for their lives, and to spark ideas for new insurance products and future engagement with these groups of people. So what they were exploring was, how do we co-create and collaborate with our customers, and particularly these customers from Gen Z? So what did we do? We took we created insight communities, that's what we call them, and we created two because we had two different audiences. Of course, we had the Gen Z audience. These are people from the European Parliament. These are young people from the European Parliament. These are people from all over Europe, so it was a very diverse group: age, sex, and location. And then we had another one with just industry experts. You can imagine the results for these insight discussions were very different. And that was very helpful for us because then we could know exactly where we needed to go to satisfy the needs of the industry and to really get the kind of input and feedback from the young people that we needed for that. So then we went, as Jeff has talked about, to design the interactive experience. And the insights from the purpose and the community discussions, the insight community discussions, informed the design process. So we had 60 Gen Z participants that were going to, they were selected to participate, and they collaborated to reimagine the insurance agency for themselves and for the future society of consumers. This took a number of phases. We do a flow diagram, and we decide who's going to do what. And it was a mixture of dialogue. We had two experts. We had one expert who was talking about financial insurance knowledge, what one needs to know to make good decisions from an industry point of view. And then we had another woman who talked about sustainability, DAI, and the whole role of the values that Gen Z have, and how, from at the moment, how insurance is dealing with that. That was very interesting, very helpful, but the majority, and these were just used as sort of catalyzers for the rest of the questions. It was a day-long experience, and and they discussed, most of the time they were in discussion with one another. We collected all their data, either analog in terms of post-its, or we have a digital app we use, so we can collect data in real time from their mobile phones, and then they can vote on it and say, these are the ideas we think are really cool. So we had thousands of pieces of data that we analyzed at the end. But what do we do in between at the end of this day-long experience? The young people, we asked them to choose, they wanted to provide a message to the industry specialists who are having a conference, worldwide conference. And so each of the tables decided, they formulated a description of the message they wanted. Now you understand, these are people between 17 and 28, right? Incredible. And they sat down and they worked together as teams. They'd never known each other before. And they came up with a variety of messages that they wanted to give to the insurance industry. What we did is we then put them up all on a wall. We gave them all 5 points apiece and said, what are the ones that are most relevant to you personally? So we had a democratic vote, and they chose the top 3 ideas. themselves. We had nothing to do with it. They chose. We didn't edit it. We didn't, nothing. And so, and then we told them, but you have to present it. So then they decided in their small groups to present this material to the group of people who were at the conference. They're on the stage, and three of them blew the entire audience away. Why? Because here there's a whole group. The leaders were saying, wow, this is incredible. They're so together. They can really tell us what they want. They were surprised by the quality of the input that they had. You have to understand, they had probably less than 45 minutes to prepare this. And they weren't people who were really, yeah, let's put it this way, they weren't really prepared to make presentations. And then they were really curious about what they were going to say. I think it's really interesting to say that we're working along with Insurance Europe to use this data to provide, to develop the next product of their co-creation and collaboration with these young people. So we just recently had a call with them, and they said it was incredible. This leader, he said, these young people came onto the stage, presented these really great, very focused ideas. It was the best energy that we had the entire day. So that is what a, a, a zero distance probe at its very best can be. Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Patricia. And I would add to that is that it's changing the way that the insurance industry, at least in Europe, is addressing the younger generation. And they're looking at various ways now as a result of this intervention of co-creating new products, new experiences, new messaging to reach this customer segment. And insurance industry is not particularly well known for its engagement in co-creating, but this is one of the resulting factors that has come out of that experience so far. What I'd like to say here is that this customer proximity that Patricia describes so well is no longer optional. It's really a strategic imperative. And you know, we have markets that shift nowadays in weeks, not years. And AI is only accelerating that process. And we know that customer loyalty depends on authenticity and responsiveness. So zero distance probes build the muscle that your organization needs to stay connected. Connection does not occur through hierarchy, but through networks of sense making and empathy. These networks don't just capture insights, they create alignment. They don't just listen to customers, they learn with them. And by collapsing the distance between the organization and its ecosystem, probes turn proximity into performance. They give decision makers a live window into customer reality, enabling faster, more informed decisions and helping organizations adapt before change becomes urgent. In today's world, speed, insight, and empathy are not nice to haves. They are the differentiators between organizations that thrive and those that merely react. Pat?
Ensemble Enabler and Network Leadership is an enabling company. We do a whole group of things to enhance collaboration, advance the network mindset for today's network era, and to create optimal business solutions, from executive mentoring to network labs, zero distant probes, what we're talking about together. And we have a whole series of network-driven tools to help to visualize and enable us to understand the power of networks better. But as I just want to end by saying, but in today's world, zero distance isn't a metric, it's a mindset. So we would love to, if you have a moment and you want to ask some questions right now, please do. If you don't have time, we have a QR code and a link that you can ask your questions in all privacy, and we'll respond within 24 hours. It will be open for 24 hours. In the newsletter for October, there's a story about a Chinese manager who became the head of Hire, who basically, some guy called up, he was a repairman, and they were saying, our washing machines aren't working in this one part of China. And he said, oh, and they found out they weren't washing clothes, they were washing sweet potatoes, right? Because they're muddy when they come out of the ground, right? But listen to this. Because of that call, the CEO was listening and saying, oh, but there's 78 million potato growers in that part of China. We better make a washing machine for their potatoes. And the rest is history. Read the story. It's fascinating. And that's what zero distance to the customer is really about.
Let me check in. Let me check in with Rupinder. Do you have any
Yeah.
questions or anything that you would like to discuss?
Very patient. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to start by saying that I would have branded that washing machine mashed potato. Right. And the next thing I wanted to say is 3 thank yous, guys. Firstly, for kindly reaching out, inviting me. Secondly, for the patience while my wife was flinging me around. You can see I've stopped now. And thirdly, for the very, very not only clear and brilliantly lucidly presented presentation, but talking about a topic which is absolutely the unlocker for most companies, because in my humble opinion, after 33 years of working, organizations are usually set up and broken by design, because they're set up on functional lines rather than customer and commercial lines. And my modus operandi, the way I tend to operate, is absolutely with simplicity. And really, the most powerful thing that any organization can do is work backwards from its customers. And obviously, when I saw the invite and it talked about reducing the proximity, and obviously I was intrigued, and I've not been left disappointed. Clearly seeing how aligned we are in terms of the thinking, but I think you've also described some approaches in order to how to try and execute that. And again, when you strip the noise back, those approaches are relatively simple, but simplicity is greater than complexity in the equation, right? And I think I was really happy to see that you not only included colleagues and different levels of the organization cross-functionally and across and upwards, but absolutely partners as well as customers, right? So I think just wanted to hugely bow to both of you and your colleagues, because I think what you're talking about is absolutely on point. It has been an absolute unlocker for me